Hey everyone, thanks for watching DMX Bracelets. And in this tutorial, I'm going to be teaching you how to use these DMX RGB bracelets in your light show so you can have all of your viewers be part of the show. So let's get right into the video. So if you're new here, my name is Nick and I make videos about how to set up a light display anywhere you want using smart RGB pixels, how the hardware and software works behind it, and I even show what my light show looks like at the end of every year. So if you're new to RGB pixels, I really recommend you watch this playlist right here because it'll take you through the basics on how to use them, and this tutorial will make a lot more sense once you understand how that works. Now this video is going to be a bit of a longer video because there is a lot to cover with these bracelets, but trust me, it's not that complicated. I'm going to have time codes in the timeline, so if you want to skip to a certain part to see how these work, you can go ahead and do that. Here are the main things we're going to be covering in this video. What are DMX RGB bracelets? How can I set them up in my light show? Where can I buy them from? How much do they cost? And what controller can you use them on? And if you want to stick around to the end of the video, I'll even be showing you how you can make logos to put on your bracelets. That way they don't look like a plain bracelet. You could put your logo. This says Xlights. The BB stands for Bridgeport's Brightest. We couldn't get them all to fit. But this just makes it even cooler. This first part is going to be a brief overview about how everything works, and then I'll go deeper into each section later in the video. To answer the first question, what are these bracelets and what do they do? You can wear it like a bracelet, and then it has an RGB pixel inside of here that could change any color, anytime, and you could sync it with your lights. So if all of your lights on your house are flashing between red, green, and blue, you can make this flash the same colors at the same time. It has a switch right here on the side, so right now it's off, and when you switch it, a red light will come on right here. This shows that it's on, and then there's also a screw and a cover underneath it, and it takes 2 watch batteries. So if they ever die, you can unscrew this screw and put in 2 watch batteries. Now these bracelets are wireless, and they take a transmitter, and it will receive the signal from the transmitter, and it'll do whatever the transmitter says. So you can have a whole box of bracelets like I do, and give them out to any of your viewers, and then they'll all receive the same signal, and all the bracelets will do the same thing at the same time. Now this is what the transmitter looks like. It has an antenna on it, and then it has some plugins on the back. You plug in power right here, and then this is where it receives the data. It takes an XLR connector. Those cables are usually used for microphones, and then it also has a USB Type-C port right here. It says for programming. I'm not quite sure what that does, but you don't need it to run these. Now this receives a DMX signal to send out to all the bracelets, and that is actually very convenient because most popular controllers can send out DMX data right through them, and you can even program it in Xlights. I'm not quite sure about other sequencing software since I don't use it, but I do know you can use it in Xlights. Basically, you'll just set up the bracelets as a single pixel, and it will send 3 channels of data to your controller. And then if your controller works with DMX, you can set it up to have the signal go straight out of the DMX port into the transmitter. To answer another question, what controllers does this work on? This works on all of the Falcon controllers in the V3 and V4 series. They might even work with the V2 series, but I'm not sure about that. They work on the Falcon Pi cap that's sold on Pixel Controller's website. This transmitter works with almost all cult boards. I think there's 2 that it might not work on, but I'm not for sure since I don't use those. It also works on the RPi FMC and the RPi 28D Pi cap. So if you don't want to hook it to your controller, or you can't, you could just buy one of these cheap Pi caps and run it right off the Raspberry Pi. I know there's a lot of other controllers, and if I didn't say which one you use, all you have to do is see if your controller works with DMX. If it says somewhere it can output DMX data, then it will more than likely work with this. Now most of those controllers have an RJ45 jack or an Ethernet port that outputs the data. So how are you going to get it into here when this takes an XLR connector? Well, you could buy a converter like this. I will put a link in the description for where I bought this on Amazon, but basically it just goes into the RJ45 jack, snaps in there, then you can put the Ethernet cable in here. You could also just get an XLR cable and an Ethernet cable and wire it yourself if you wanted to. Now I'm going to answer the next question, where can you buy these and how much do they cost? So if you're looking to buy these for the 2022 Christmas light show season, you're probably not going to be able to find any left in stock, and if you do, it might not get here in time. You might still have a chance, but I recommend if you do find any in stock, you order them now because they will be going out of stock soon since it's getting closer to Christmas. As of right now, I know of 2 places you could buy the bracelets and transmitter from. I'm sure you can find others, but these are the only 2 I know. The first one is you can buy them off of Xlights. If you've never heard of Xlights, they sell pixels, they sell certain controllers, power supplies, basically almost everything you need to run a light show. The cost of them as of August 2022 is around $180 for the transmitter, and then $399 a bracelet. They are in stock right now, but I'm not sure if they will be a few weeks from now. And $399 is actually really expensive for the bracelets, because if you want to buy 100 bracelets, you're looking at $400 for the bracelets, then an additional almost $200 for the transmitter. So where I recommend buying them is from the Facebook group buy for the bracelets. There's a Facebook group for these bracelets, and what happens is at the beginning and middle of the year, everyone places one big order. So if there's 100 people ordering 100 bracelets each, they'll place an order of 10,000 bracelets and then 100 transmitters, and it will be way cheaper because you're buying it in bulk. I'm not sure of the price since I haven't bought from there, but I've heard you could get the bracelets for about 80 cents a piece and the transmitter for around the same price as Xlights. Now, one final thing before I get into how to set it up in Xlights and on your controller, I have to give out this warning about the bracelets. I highly recommend you don't skip this because this is very important. I was told an issue about these bracelets and ran into it myself while testing them. The transmitter uses the same signal as newer key fobs for your car, and it's messed up with car key fobs before. I set up the transmitter in my garage for a test, and I turned it on and was wearing a bracelet to make sure the signal was working. But then when you try to unlock any car using the key fob will not be detected by the car because the signal messes it up. So you try to hit the unlock button or the lock button and it won't unlock the car. It also won't allow you to put the key in the car to unlock the door because it can't detect the key fob, and with most newer cars it will turn on the alarm. I've also heard it messes with remote garage doors. I have not ran into that problem, but I've heard some other people have, so that's another thing just to keep in mind. Now, I've done some testing, but I'm not sure if any of this is true. This is just the information I've gathered. It only messes with the signal of newer cars from about 2014, 2013, and newer cars from there. I tested it on a car that was from 2009, and it had no problem. It unlocked, it locked perfectly fine. I could still use the key while the bracelets were running, and this is the main thing I've noticed. Key fobs that look like this, where there is a key sticking out or the key fob and the actual key are separate, do not run into the problem. However, key fobs that look like this that don't have a key or the key is inside of it and you have to pull it out, those are the ones I've noticed that have the problem. Now for our car, when the door is unlocked and the signal is going to the bracelets, you can still start it because you put the key in the car. But my neighbors let me test their car. They have one with a push start button. So they just have their key fob in there and then they push the button to start it. Since the key fob can't be detected with the signal from the bracelets, their car won't start. A solution might be to get a shorter antenna so the signal doesn't go as far. And then there's this another solution where you send less data out in Xlights, which I'll show when I'm programming it. But now I've been talking for a while, so I'm going to go over to Xlights and show you how to program the bracelets in Xlights. Then we'll move on to the controllers and Raspberry Pi. So I've opened up Xlights on my computer and I've opened a test folder. This is the test folder I've used in some other videos. And the first thing I'm going to be showing you in Xlights is how to put the model on here, then how to hook it to a controller, and then how to sequence it in the sequencer tab. Now before I get started, I should say that if you don't know how to use Xlights, I highly recommend watching this tutorial video on the screen right now. It is almost 3 hours long, but it shows the complete tutorial on how to use Xlights, and this will make a lot more sense once you know how that works. So for the bracelets, you actually need 2 models. You need a DMX floodlight and then just a single pixel. Now the DMX floodlight does not have to be anywhere specific. This model actually won't be lighting up at all. All this is for is to send a certain signal to the bracelets and the transmitter. So I'm in a 3D layout in Xlights right now, and it is a little dark, but you can see the house outline right here, and there are some props on it. This floodlight can go anywhere you want. It doesn't even have to be on the screen. What I do in my layout is I just move it all the way to the side, because you don't even have to see it. This will also work in 2D too, so you can set this up like you would in 2D. Now in Xlights, this is not the main prop you will be programming the effects on. So what I usually call it is I call the actual prop that I control bracelets control, and then I call this prop bracelets signal, because this is the signal for the bracelets. And then set the number of channels to 2 and set each of the colors to 0. Nothing has to be set on here. The only thing you need to be set up is the number of channels, and this has to be 2. Now we're going to make the bracelet that you actually see the colors on, and you don't have to make a separate prop for each bracelet. You only need to make one bracelet on here, because you only need to send one bracelet signal to the transmitter, and the transmitter will transmit that signal to as many bracelets as there are. So you can use the single line. This is the easiest model to set it up with. Make a single line on here, set the number of strings to 1, set the nodes a string to 1, and set the lights a node to 1. So this is basically set for 1 pixel. That's all you need. And then since it's very small, I'd recommend going into the appearance and making it bigger. I usually set it to 25, and then I also set it to square. Now the position of this single line does matter if you're going to be using this in a group with all of your props on your house or just a certain group. I don't recommend that because it can make certain effects look weird. But if you do plan on doing that, put this in a spot where you think the whole house models would look good. So for most effects, it would look best in the middle. I usually only use 3 effects though when I'm programming mine. I use the on effect, the color wash effect, and the bar effect. And I program this separately from everything else, so I'd recommend you do that too. If you are going to do that, it does not matter where the bracelet is. You can put it anywhere where you think it looks best for you. So I'll just put it in the front of the display and right to the right of it. So right here, I think it looks the best, and whenever you have your bracelet changing colors, this is the model that will change colors. Now since this is like the main control prop, I'll name this to bracelet control. This is the prop you'll put all the effects on for the bracelet. And then the other prop, the only effect you'll put on that is a DMX effect, which will take the signal from this prop to send it out. And that's how simple as the setup is to get it in your layout on Xlights. And now I'm going to show you how you can hook it up to your controller. Like I said at the beginning of the video, this will work with any controller that can output a DMX signal. And to make this as easy as possible to set up, I recommend you select the vendor of your controller and the model. So I'm using Falcon controllers in this example, and I'm using the F16 V3. And this is the controller I am using this year for the light show. And then also check off auto layout models, auto size, and full Xlights control. That way you can use the visualizer and it'll be easier to show up on here. Now you need to scroll down to the serial ports or the DMX ports. The first thing you want to do is take the bracelet signal model and put that onto serial port 3. Important note, like I said, this is for the F16 V3. You could use output 1 or 2 if you wanted, but I use 3 in this example. You may have more or less serial outputs on your own controller and may need to use a different output than the one shown in this video, which is okay as long as you set your controller to output the data on that same port. Then take the bracelet control, this is the one where you put the effects on it, the other one is where you put the DMX effect on, and hook that right after the bracelet signal so it's on serial port 3. And this is how you hook it to the controller, and when you're done, make sure you push save. And now we can go into sequencing the bracelets. Now I'm just going to quickly make an animation sequence. Now what I've done is I put both the bracelet effects together, and we don't need to focus on the rest of the house since I won't be programming it in this video. The only thing we need to focus on is this dot right here. This is for the bracelets. I'm going to put a timing mark down at about 10 seconds so we can make a 10-second effect. And the first thing you want to do is put a DMX effect on the bracelet signal. The bracelet signal is not the white one, it is the one that we do not need to see. What you want to do on this DMX effect is leave channel 2 to 0 and set channel 1 to 85. It's very important that this is 85, not 84, not 86, 85. Now that this is down, you can place any effect you want on the bracelet's control and it will make it show up on there. So let's just pick like a color wash, and I'll select all these colors right here. And I'll change a few settings. Let's make it a little bit faster. So now you can see this is changing color, and if you were to play this sequence right now, the bracelets would be doing this. One thing to keep in mind is that if you have an effect that is changing color, like this color wash, that is changing the color of the bracelets all the time, the DMX effect must be on under it. So if I only put the DMX effect through half of it, it's still going to show up before the DMX effect and after the DMX effect. However, on the bracelets, it will only work if the DMX effect is under it, so it will be changing color right now, but once it passes and there's no DMX effect under here, even though it looks like it's changing color in Xlights, it will not be changing color in real life. And in fact, it would be stuck on pink, because since pink is the last bit of signal it receives, it will not turn off. So I can make this the whole length of the effect if I want, but when it gets to the last color before it turns off, which is like bluish purple, it will be stuck on there because the bracelets will not be able to have time to receive a signal to tell them to turn off. So if you make this just slightly longer so it's past the effect, now it will turn off the bracelets when the effect is over. Now, if you have a simple effect where it's just staying on, so let's get rid of this. And let's just make it an on effect. And let's select green for the color, let's say. Since this is the same color and it's not changing, the DMX effect does not need to be under the whole thing. It just needs to be at the very beginning, and that way when it turns green, it can still send the signal to the transmitter to tell it to turn on green. So turn on green, and then the bracelets will stay on green because they did not receive a signal to turn off. However, when it gets to the end, it's still going to be stuck on green even though it turned off because there is no DMX effect at the end to tell it to turn off. So you need to make another DMX effect right here at the end. So right there, so it's on green and on the off part. That way it will send out a signal to tell the bracelets to turn off. But if it's a color wash or some sort of effect that's changing, it has to have the DMX effect on. Now you might be wondering, for the on effect, why not just when you have your sequence, put the DMX effect down and drag it out the whole length of the song. That way you don't have to worry about turning it on and off. You can do that and that will work perfectly fine. But then you will run into the problem where it's affecting key fobs and sometimes garage doors. So this is the part, if you did not watch the warning, please go back in the time shown on the video to go watch what I was talking about. But anytime the DMX effect is on, even though there's no color effect right here, it is still sending a signal to the bracelets telling them to turn off. So it just keeps saying turn off, turn off, turn off, turn off. But since it's sending that signal to turn off, that is interfering with the key fobs and any other problems it might have. So if you have a gap, let's say between 10 seconds and 25 seconds where you have no effect on, and this is on your song, what you could do is put the DMX effect just to the end, so we have the green, and the green will run and they'll turn off because it's still sending the signal right here. And then let's put red right at the end. So I'll make another timing mark and I'll put red. If we put the DMX effect right here, and then have it stick out just a little bit so it can receive the signal on, this whole time where nothing is happening, it will be sending no signal. So that way it gives you a few gaps when you might be able to try and use a key fob if it's not working. This whole time it's telling it to send a green signal, so we technically don't even need the DMX effect here because it's a single color, but I'll just leave it there. And then since it sticks out, it gave the signal to turn off, and now it's not sending any signal. The bracelets will not have any signal and they will stay off until they get a new signal. And then after the gap, the signal starts up again and then tells them to turn on red. And then since the sequence ends right here, we should probably move red back just a little bit so there's a gap of off time, so it will tell the bracelets to turn off. If this sounds confusing to you, you can just use one DMX effect and keep it running the whole song, but just be aware it will leave no gaps of time where key fobs might work. Whereas if you have the other option, there might be gaps every now and then, so it might be a little annoying, but you can keep hitting the button on your key fob until no signal's coming from the bracelets, and then it will work for your car. So mainly just keep the DMX effect on when you have any effect playing, and a little bit to the outside, so it still has time to tell it to turn off. And then you don't have to send any signal in the middle. Now quickly I'm going to show you some other effects that you can use. For example, you can use the color wash like I showed. You can also use the bars effect. This is a good effect if you want to change the colors without making it go smooth. So you can select a few colors. And depending on what you want the speed to be at, you can set the palette rep to a higher number and increase the cycles. So now it's flashing between the colors, and since it's changing colors, the DMX effect will have to be running. So even if I did this, it still is changing, but on the bracelets it will not be. Those are the main effects I use when I'm programming it: the on effect, bars effect, and color wash. All of the other ones really don't work that well because since it's not a lot of pixels, it can't show the effect. But if you have any effects where the lights are twinkling or lights are flashing very fast, it will look very random on the bracelets if there's only a white flash every now and then. And the bracelets are very bright, so it will look kind of weird. That is how you set up the bracelets in Xlights, and now I'm going to quickly make a little sequence with them in my main light show folder, and I'll be showing you now the setup on FPP. So I'm logged into the Raspberry Pi right now with FPP, and there really isn't much to show for this part. Basically do what you normally do: upload your FSEQ file to the file manager, and then you can make the playlist and make sure you set up your channel outputs. But this is all you need to do, there's nothing else. The only thing that requires a little bit more setup is the controller part, but for the computer, whether you're using FPP or Xschedule, just basically upload the FSEQ file, make a schedule, and make sure all of your channels are set up right. Now all you have to set up is the controller, and this is pretty easy. The only thing you need to do is go to output settings and serial output. String ports is where anything on the actual pixel ports is put, but serial outputs is for the DMX or Renard or PixelNet controllers on the RJ45 jacks on the controller. So back in Xlights, as long as you put the bracelets on number 3 on serial port 3 like I showed, then the only thing you need to do is put the start address on here. So leave this set to serial data and DMX on number 3 and put in the start address of the bracelets. So the start channel. So let's say your start channel is 2056, then you'd put in 2056, push enter, and then push save. Mine is set for the very first channel, channel 1, so I just need to leave it at 1. And that is the only setup you need to do on your controller. This is for Falcon controllers, and this should work with the V4 controllers, possibly even the V2 controllers. And as long as your controller has DMX, like I said in the beginning of the video, you can go into your controller's user interface and find the DMX or serial data spot. If you're not using Falcon controllers, you might have to put it on a different serial output, and that would have also been different in Xlights. But just make sure the output on Xlights and your controller is the same. Now, your bracelets aren't quite ready to run yet. You still have to hook it to the controller. So the process to plug in the transmitter to the controller is very simple. I have my F16 V3 right here. It is off right now. And then I have the Raspberry Pi with Falcon Player on it right here, and they're all connected to this network switch. So right here are the 3 RJ45 outputs. The top one can be used for a differential receiver, and then the bottom 2 are for DMX or LOR boards, Renard, PixelNet, stuff like that. For this example, we will be using this RJ45 jack. You'll notice right next to the jack there are these 3 jumpers right here. If we look at the top of them, you'll notice it says LOR at the top, and then at the bottom right there it says DMX. You need to make sure that all 3 jumpers for this output are bridging the middle and DMX pin, which is to the right. I'm not 100% sure, but I think most Falcon controllers come with them bridging the LOR setting. So you'll have to take each of these out and move them to the right. You only need to do these 3 on the bottom for the bottom port, because these 3 go to this one. If you're lucky, you might be able to get them out with your fingers, but I have to use a very tiny screwdriver to put in here and lift them up. Just like that, and you'll notice that the jumper is very small. It doesn't matter which way it's flipped, whether it's this way or if it's flipped this way, as long as it's bridging the middle and right pins on the connector you want to use. Now, I haven't looked into this. I'm not sure if other controllers have a switch or if they don't use these at all. There might be a setting on the controller. But if there is a setting that you find, make sure it's set for DMX, because if it's set for LOR, it will not send out the right signal and it will not work. And that was probably the hardest thing to do because of how small it is. The next thing is to grab your transmitter and hook it into the controller. I have an Ethernet cable right here for it. So I'll plug it into there, and I will plug it in to the bottom port right here. Now you can go ahead and turn on your controller if you want and grab the power cable for the transmitter. I have it right here, so I will plug it into the surge protector right here. You will see that the transmitter has a light on it that turns green, and when it's receiving data, it will flash green very fast. So since no data is being transmitted, because no sequence is playing, it's just on green, it's not flashing. Now I just moved most of the Ethernet cable down there so it's out of the way. Now you can go and turn on your bracelet with the switch. You'll notice the red light comes on. Now, if we've set up everything correctly, I should be able to go turn on a sequence, and this should start doing what the sequence says. And there we go. I just turned on the sequence. You can see this is running. I'm going to turn off the light right here so you can see a little better. It might look very bright to the camera right now. However, it's not as bright as the camera is making it look, but it is still decently bright. It might be a little hard to see, but you can also see this green light is flickering right here, which means it's receiving data. And that is all you need to do to get these bracelets working. Now, one last question I wanted to answer that I didn't answer at the beginning of the video is how far can these bracelets go? So I tested it in our neighborhood with a lot of houses nearby, so we would have to go through a lot of objects to see how far it could go. I was able to get it to go around 15 houses down the road one way and 12 houses down the road the other way. I am not sure how many feet that is because I just walked around the neighborhood with it. So I'll put on the screen right now about how far it went, and to remind you, this is going through trees, houses, cars, any object. One thing that might affect this too is if you have a dead or almost dead bracelet, the signal won't be able to reach as far. But now I'm quickly going to talk about how to make these cool logos for your bracelet. And this one is flipped, it's just because of the way the camera works. But in real life, it does show BB lights, like I showed at the beginning. So what we did is we bought a bunch of sheets of this sticky tab paper. If you look, there are different sections. It's kind of hard to see. but each section is a 1/2 inch tall by 1 3/4 inches long. These sheets have 80 of these on here, and you can print on them and then peel them off and put them on the bracelets. We bought these off of Avery.com. That's Avery.com. I don't remember the exact price for these, but we got 10 sheets of 80, so 800, and I think it was under $30. And then once you have these, you can create a logo on their website for them or whatever design you want. To use their website, it's free, and then you can also print these on your own printer if you want, or have them print it for you. Now, I didn't exactly like how their website worked. It didn't give you a ton of features that you could put on the design. So I made the design on a different website and then just imported it into their website. You can edit one on there, and then it will edit them for the whole page. And then we stuck this in our printer, and then we told the website we'll print it ourselves, and it printed a whole page of the logos for us. Now we have a whole page of logos that we have to put on all the bracelets. And I've only gotten rid of one so far because I've only put it on that one bracelet. So now I have 79 to go. But that's the easiest way I know of to print these logos, and they do look really nice. And that is the full tutorial on how to use these DMX LED bracelets. I think it's something awesome that we're having the show this year, and I highly recommend you buy them. If you have any questions or comments or anything you think I left out in the video, please feel free to write it down below in the comments. But that's going to be it for this tutorial. Thank you very much for watching all the way to the end, and I'll see you in the next video.